When I met Pratima a couple of years ago, walking into a meeting pretty obnoxiously late with her Sophia Loren glasses. And I thought, who is she? And she's like, I'm going to the library. And then she was so smart and brave in the meeting, and I loved her from first sight, first meeting.
Okay.
I'll hug her for you.
I love the microphone.
I know. It amplifies it really well.
My name is Telle Whitney, and I'm a computer scientist. I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Yeah. So I worked in semiconductor for many years, and I just spent the last 15 years as CEO of the Anita Borg Institute. I'm also the co-founder of the Grace Hopper Celebration and of NC WIT.
It's really an honor to sit next to her. Seriously, it's amazing. I've seen her on the stage. I went to Grace Hopper every year, the last 7 years. So my name's Erica Lockheimer, and I guess start with the most important things first. Put pressure. So I have 2 kids, and
I want to say something.
Yes.
From a PR strategist.
Get rid of the glasses.
Get rid of the glasses.
Here you go. Good job.
Thank you.
Do we need to start again?
No. Put the glasses down.
Smart. So I have 2 kids. My daughter's 8 and my son's 11. Amazing husband. Also have 3 chickens. I really love my chickens. They're important. So I work at LinkedIn. I head the learning team at LinkedIn, all of engineering, and I've been there for almost 8 years. My background is computer engineering, graduated from San Jose State, and also 20% of my time at LinkedIn is leading women in tech. So this is something really true to my heart. So I'm so thankful for meeting you. It's truly an honor and to be part of this. So thank you.
I'm Christine Martino. I am a wife and mother of 2, and my beautiful daughter's here tonight, which is nice for her to see so many strong women, right? It was a strategy of mine. I work at Intuit now, and I'm the COO of cybersecurity, data, legal, and compliance, a whole bunch of stuff. I also am a mentor at Women Unlimited, and I've done that for about 6 years now, and I love that, and I get way more than I give doing that mentoring. And I'm also the chairman of the board of a nonprofit called Resource Area for Teaching that helps teachers do hands-on learning with students so that they can grasp concepts that maybe they wouldn't be able to via lecture. So that's me, and I probably know you the least of anyone here because I met you through Patrick, who's in the room somewhere back there. Patrick.
Yeah. I'm Annabel Liu. I'm mother of 2 boys and nice husband. I'm currently working on my own startup, which I co-founded with a few friends of mine about 8 months ago. Prior to that, I worked at LinkedIn for about 7 years, leading LinkedIn's largest monetization business called Talent Solutions, focused on recruiting, jobs, and all that. And I met Pratima through some common friend,
Dana.
Through Dana, and then it's pretty. Like when I met her, we had she was asking me all these questions, and I was literally jabbering. I think I was just talking whatever comes to my mind. And a year later, she sent me this draft. I was like, wow. I said something pretty profound sometimes.
And of course, everybody knows Pratima. So the format is open to questions. I have a few pre-prepared questions, which I will ask, but anybody that has any questions about what it's like to be a woman in tech, challenges, suggestions for success, feel free to jump in. So the first question is, as a woman in tech, I'll ask, I guess, Christina, how are you supporting other women in tech?
Oh, I already hinted to that, right? I'm a mentor at Women Unlimited, which is not exclusively for tech women, but being as we're in the Valley, I think at least 75 or 80% of the women are in either high tech or biotech that I mentor. So, and as I said, I get so much from mentoring these women and have built lasting relationships far beyond the program with several of them. I also mentor anyone who asks and that I like at Intuit as well. And I too have been part of Intuit's has a very big contingent that goes to Grace Hopper, which is an amazing organization. And I too am awed by sitting with Telle up here on the stage. And so I've been there as well and made some lasting relationships with some of the young women there too.
Anybody else? Totally?
Well, I mean, at work, I just had one woman approach and said, I really am struggling with a promotion. And I said, okay, let's work on that. Tell me a little bit more about it. And it wasn't like, okay, I want you to be my mentor, nothing very formal, nothing very long. And she said, I work with this guy, he doesn't really listen, really hard, I don't know what to say. I said, let's build on that. And I am in the room because as a director, and that was when I was in the networking business unit, there were like actually very few women overall in that business unit, and especially in Jeff's staff, there were none. And when her promotion eventually came up, I was there to sponsor her, and I call it sponsoring because you have to advocate like very proactively. The other way I support women is I find talent, and at the back of the room is Alison McCormack, one of the best program managers I've ever worked with. And by the way, a PhD in biology, which she also has. But she wasn't in the tech industry, and I said, honey, you can do this. Just come join me. So that's another way. And today she's like, everybody wants to work with her. The reason they like me is because like, can she be on my project, please? So that's another way. You're just a person at a time, and make a difference and do it really well once and twice and 3 times. And then it just spreads out. She has a daughter too. And who knows where this will go.
Anybody else?
I think one of the things I always, first of all, I make myself available to whoever that, for people I've connected with. One thing that I always remember to share with my mentees is that I think that realization came to me a little bit late in my late stages of a career, is that there are a lot of people out there that are really willing to help, only if you reach out. Like I think in my early careers, I need a lot of help in, like presentation, speech, relationship management, things like that. Like I just didn't know there are people willing to help me. Right. Once I reach out, seeing that people actually respond, they provide me feedback, and I start to get more and more help. So I always kind of wanted to share that piece with whoever I talk to, just let them know that there are people out there that really, they don't want anything from you. They want to pay it forward, right? And they should really reach out to get all the help they need, because we all need help, and we don't get there by ourselves.
Well, I'm at an unfair disadvantage because I have had this job for 15 years where with a third of the people that come to the conference are students, and so I'm constantly having people come up to me and say, this changed my life, and which is, gosh, it's really very wonderful. But if you take a step back, I do believe that, we've got some very strong women, and as you get up and speak, and you have young women in the audience, they hear you, and there's a lot of people who you're role models for that you don't even realize that you're role models for. At the companies, there's people who are not talking to you, but they see you up there. So it's, I think it's important to be mentors and sponsors and the things that they're just really important. But just doing your job and having people see that can have a huge impact.
Yeah, and I would just add on, I remember going to Grace Hopper for the very first time, and then that just took on a whole new world. That changed my world entirely, and that's where I became like, hey, this is when you see, like, now I think they have 18,000 attendees, but when you go to a conference and there's just massive women everywhere, and you flip that ratio, and you're like, wow, I do belong. It's so impacting. So I think coming back to LinkedIn, and then you go back into your company, you're like, oh, that felt really great. And then you realize that that's that's not the reality. And then you become mission driven and you want to change it. And I think that is so inspiring of what you've created. And part of my job at LinkedIn, 20% of my job, Annabel used to be on the team before she left LinkedIn, is leading women in tech. And so we create programs. And because we didn't want it to be a volunteer effort, because things don't get done that way, right? And so I want results, I get measured, I get bonuses, I get whatever I do to make this happen. But we've created amazing programs, like we have a high school training program, bring young girls into LinkedIn and like an internship, and they are it changes their whole perspective. And they want to now be a computer science major, and like, I didn't realize being an engineer is so fun and it's social, and you get them one at a time, and it's been so impactful. It reminds me of a story that you were just mentioning. Is last week we have this program called Invest, and it's about investing in women at LinkedIn. And we do executive coaching and 2-day workshop, and we work with the VPs to pick these women. And I found out one woman, she was down in Carpinteria, down south, and we flew her in to be part of this program. And I found out during that program, I had shared an authentic story, but I found out later, she was in the parking lot, and she didn't want to walk into that room because she felt like she didn't belong. And where it's like, we invested in you, we asked you to come here, and she just, sometimes war zones get stuck in your head, imposter syndrome, everything you talked about, and now it changed her world. So it's like just one thing, and I think we're all have a moral obligation to do something different since we're so much aware now. So anyways, so amazing sitting next to you.
I just want to say one thing. I mean, I don't want to advertise for LinkedIn, but I really like what LinkedIn does with 20% of the time, because there are a lot of women here at VMware who do the same thing, but they do it on top of their work.
Yeah.
Right? And it's hard, and I keep saying we need to make sure we change that.
Yep. Let me know if I can do a pitch, and I'm in there.
Yeah, it would be great. You should come do a pitch.
Yeah, or
And
even maybe
seriously,
our
like, change
executive
it.
male supporters. I mean, we have our Mohawk, he's SVP at LinkedIn, Microsoft, Kevin Scott, CTO of Microsoft, and the men is what has helped us, the male leaders in our organization, saying this is important. So.
Anything from, yes, Ellen?
I have a question. So it's great that you guys are helping young women emerge. I'm in a book club with women around my age, and there's 5 of us who are unemployed, people who have been successful their entire careers, and they hit their late 50s, early 60s, and got laid off. VP at GE, senior director at VMware, myself, and others. How can you help women? I mean, there's ageism in the valley. I hope you may agree with
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to acknowledge that. I believe it's there, and I think it's worse for women. So how can you guys help women like us who have had successful careers their entire career? If you publish a blog, it's going to say so-and-so has 35 years of experience in X, and we're busy burying 20 years of our experience. So we only have 15 on our resume and on LinkedIn. So how can you help us?
That is an excellent question.
Well, I think you started it by awareness, because it's pretty interesting to me. I feel that I've been a bit victim of that as well in my career, but I persevered and am employed now, but I have friends in the same situation. And to be honest with you, until you asked that question, I never thought, how can we focus there as well, right? It really is so much about the youth and the women coming out of school. And you're right, there's so much wasted talent in this valley.
There are companies that have programs for reentry, and so it varies a lot from company to company, but some of the largest companies in Silicon Valley have a very young workforce, and so conscious or not, there's a lot of ageism, no question about it. But I do think that varies a lot from company to company. I actually think Intuit in India has done a lot of work about reentry, and I believe Intel has done it. So, there are places, but it's an important topic.
And I'll just add, we piloted a program last year where it was called Reach, and we're trying to figure out how to scale it. But it's like not only people that are trying to re-enter the workforce, but also people that didn't have a traditional path. And maybe I didn't get that 4-year degree, maybe I did boot camp. So it's like they don't fit that perfect mold. And we have some women that are returning back to work from being a mom, but you're right, like in that 20, that big gap, I think that is something we can actually expand, because the way we kicked off this program was tell us your story. And if you need to get your skills up leveled, we had about 30 people coming to LinkedIn, and we winded up hiring 27 of them as full-time engineers, but not all positions. But I think that's where we need to start testing and opening ourselves to different ideas and different programs. But you're right, I don't know any company that's doing it amazingly
Yeah, by the way, I'm
well.
not talking about people that have been out of the workforce. These are people who have worked their
Entire life
careers
and then not.
and then lost their job and have a difficult time finding the next one.
Wow.
Orna can attest to at least my capabilities.
Right, that's true.
We work
Part of the
together.
challenge also is the seniority of the jobs. Like if a guy in his 60s or
I know.
50s is looking for a senior director or a VP, he will just have a hard time, I think, as women. Probably harder for women, but definitely for a guy too. And one of the solutions is just to compromise, which is painful. But look, there's no solution, right? So, yeah.
So segueing, a bunch of people have mentioned imposter syndrome. And so the question that I have is why women suffer from so many women suffer from imposter syndrome. And how, you've been successful, how do you combat it?
Well, I don't have it, so I
Everybody but
Give us
Orna.
some of that.
Let me rephrase the question for Orna.
my method is,
How did you transition
there's no
yourself
such thing
into
as
that?
not having it. There's always doubt myself. So my method is I just go to the best. Like for example, I don't have an engineering degree. I have a certificate of engineering, but not a degree. I've got other degrees, master degrees, but 2 of them, but not really in the field I'm in. And I always think I probably am deficient somehow. So what I decided to do is go to the smartest guys. Yes, guys. Sometimes it's Dahlia. Sometimes. And what I do is I say, okay, teach me. And that gets me beyond the hump of I'm not sure if I actually can talk about the topic. And I've done it a couple of times. I've got a few architect friends, and I always go into the safe place. Dahlia is a very good friend of mine. She is a principal engineer at VMware. Really should be a fellow. Eventually she will be. And I always run whatever technical information I got through her, and she says like, okay, this is what's really going on. And then I understand. So that's how I get over it. I just talk to really the best of the best. And by the way, it's not only in high tech. Because, for example, to negotiate, which is something that I think we should do, because it is a lot about how our bodies are treated. And I'm not talking necessarily about the women in the room, but when we came to LA, we saw what happens with women and using body that is abused, and also money that is abused. And I thought, that's not going to happen to me. I'm going to negotiate. And I went to a Persian shoe seller in Jerusalem. There's no one better in negotiation. You cannot win an argument. And I took my boys and I said, I'll show you how you negotiate. It got to be so bad, he actually threw a shoe. Said, I'll show you how good it is. And because of course he wanted the unreasonable money. But I go to the best, and I did lose that negotiation. But I think we got to see what good looks like, and that's an important way to get over it, because then you have the security of standing in a room talking about something that now you know the best taught you.
So about imposter syndrome, first of all, it's not just women. I mean, I've had many men come up to me and they talk about the feeling of imposter syndrome. So it's not just women. Having said that, I hate to generalize, but women suffer more from lack of confidence. That's just, there's a part of our training. And so you hear a lot more about young women sitting in the parking lots or, trying to get the guts to come up and speak to somebody. And that's, in order to get past it, you just got to do it. In order to do it, you just got to do it. And that's really hard for many people, but I do think that you can practice with your roommate or your husband, and for asking for a new salary or negotiating, you can practice an interview with your best friend. And so it really is about showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would add on to that. There's definitely a lot of men that I talk to at LinkedIn that feel the same way, and we have conversations. So the thing that has helped me a lot is I talk to someone, like people I trust. I don't tell everybody how I'm feeling, right? That'd be disaster. But I have, like, I'll go into a meeting and I'll walk out and there's like maybe Damien, Chris, Annabelle. There's certain people that are in my circle of people that I trust. I go, hey, I just went to a meeting. I feel really like I mumbled. This happened when Jeff asked me a question, our CEO of the company. I felt like I was just like, ugh. And just talking about those feelings in a very vulnerable way. And then, okay, how I'm going to do better next time. And then also, so I think it's talking about it. I think it's also recognizing when it's happening. I'm like, it's happening again. You know, swipe right or swipe left, whatever it is, get it out of my brain. And then I do something different. So if I kind of want a different, outcome, I got to try something different. So I talk through it basically a lot and talk to people I trust.
I think I agree with that completely. And I think if you recognize that it's happening to you, that's, first of all, a very good thing. If you get feedback from others who can share with you what you could have done better, but also what you did great, and make yourself go find that feedback and get it and believe it. And another thing, a mindset I think that's very important to us at Intuit is we call ourselves learn-it-alls instead of know-it-alls. And if you have a lifetime learning mindset, you're always striving to figure out something new. You always recognize that there's more you could know about a topic. I think that helps because you're not expecting to already be the expert.
Yep, I like that.
So I think I agree with all the things that's said here. I'll just add a couple more things that I do. I think like knowing. Like I didn't even know imposter syndrome, the term, till maybe a year ago. I think I had this feeling and I didn't even know. I was like, oh, there's a term for that. And I just everyone else is suffering.
Diagnosed.
Yeah. Like it's a common thing. And then just knowing that, and I heard a lot of LinkedIn has the speaker series. I think we had a few very powerful women. One is the CEO of Xerox. She came in about
Ursula Burns?
Yeah, I think so. Like she came in like many years ago, and she was saying that she had to, when she was promoted to be the CEO, she had to go through private coaching because she was just very not confident. She doesn't even know how to talk in public, right? I think hearing those stories give me a lot of, was really inspiring for me. And then I was also kind of like from Sheryl Sandberg. I'm a big fan of her. Look up to she's my inspiration. Like from the book when she mentioned something specific about sitting on the table, right? I always remember those stories when I feel imposter syndrome. I would be like, these people that I look up to, I mean, they feel it, and then with those specific stories, with the moments when they feel and how they deal with it, and help me to get through it. Like I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one, feeling this. And the other thing that I do is like little trick is like I sometimes when I'm aware that I'm kind of going back into my comfort zone because of a challenge, I actually put myself in a situation that I have to do it. So the one example was someone sent me email to say, hey, Annabel, would you be interested in submitting a panel proposal for Grace Hopper? And I was like, really? I don't have anything interesting to share. I don't want to do it. Can I? But I was like, but inside I have a voice saying like, you should try. You should not give up. I can see myself kind of going backwards, not wanting to try. And I immediately text Erica because I know Erica will push me. I was like, Erica, someone asked me to do this. Do you think I should go? And Erica's like, immediately 30 seconds like, yes, you should do it. I was like, okay, I'll do it.
I totally remember that. Yeah. Sarah was on it. We're like, go.
Yeah. So that was like just like when you use your other your girlfriends, other people to help you commit to force yourself to put yourself in this condition, and I think that helps.
So just 1 second. So I want to introduce you to Marianna Tessel. She's in the book.
Oh yeah.
And now she's into it.
I was wondering if you could talk us through your journey and how each of these women, what is one thing you took from them that you hope we will also take from either the book or just like, what is as you sort of look through this panel of now friends, what is what you learned from them that taught you something about yourself that we should also take with us as a result of this evening?
Okay. So I think with Marianna, she kind of talks about the story where she says, how it's hard for women, and when you're in the airport, and you have that walkway where you walk really fast on that. Well, I don't know what they're called. So she said the moving sidewalk. She's like, that's what men get, right? They get to walk fast, and we're the ones who are on the other side, and it's slow and it's painful. But we get to our destination, but it takes longer, right? And I think that was kind of her takeaway from that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So every time I'm at an airport, seriously, I did that once to Jay too. I said, hey, you walk on that side, I'm taking the moving sidewalk. And I was like, bye, see you later.
That's a great analogy.
So that was great. I think that stuck with me because I felt like, it's hard to kind of do that. With Annabel, she had a great story because she talked at one point, this was actually not in the book, but this was like after we walked out of LinkedIn and we were standing there, and she said, Pratima, look at all those men smoking cigarettes over there. They're making important decisions and I'm not part of that. So every time I walk out and I look at these men somewhere, I'm like, God, they're making important decisions. So that was, awesome. I think, very cool. With Christine and I actually cried in our interview together. It's true. We actually cried. It was actually very emotional because Christine talked about age bias. For me, it was hard for me to hear that. And all the amazing things she did at HP, and just her story where, she doesn't have a college degree, but she kind of figured out how to make it, to be second to Mark Hurd and report into him, and get to that point. But then, when she came to Intuit, she just had this thing where she was like, I feel like, I'm not getting what I really want. And she's like, I have so much potential, like I can do so much, but I can't because I'm not young anymore, right? And I think that was very hard for me.
I'm kind of young.
Yes, I know. But yes, I know. I'm sorry, but I'm just saying that you
I'm
felt
young and
that.
hard.
Yeah. Right. So I think that was hard, and so we both cried. Erica. I actually am I'm a very passionate person, and I feel a lot of emotions, and I feel all that. And I think Erica really helped me that it was okay to have that. I think that was important. Like, it's okay, you don't have to be a robot at work, and you have emotions and feelings, but do it with somebody you trust. And so that was, my takeaway from Erica in a lot of ways, because she's very passionate too, and it shows every day in what she does.
Thank you. I cried with her too.
Oh, good.
It was emotional.
And Telle, Telle was just the imposter syndrome I felt with the book. Every day I would wake up and I'd be like, this is hard. I can't do it. I'm not an author. I'm not. And just her voice saying, you just show up the next day. So I would show up the next day. I'd be like, I'm going to write for 30 minutes, put my timer, and I think that really, really helped. Orna, so I was in a meeting one day, and there were two men there was one guy who was very aggressive. He was shouting at this other person on the phone. And I was on the call, and I was going like, okay, he's shouting at this man, he's shouting at me. That's how I felt. And then there was a calm voice that came through the phone. And she goes, guys, time out, right? And she really literally stopped that, whatever that was going on between them. And I think that was very important to me because it was 8 a.m, I was getting my kids to school, I was hearing this, and I just couldn't take it. And her voice really calmed me down. And that was important. And then one day we were sitting in a room, and I think something happened, and I was emotional, I was crying, and then she said, let me tell you the story. And she told me her story about Israel. And you should read that, it's very dramatic. And how she said, this is not stress to me. Stress was when I was in the war zone, right? And so she really helped, me think about how I can be even keel about the way I go about with my life. So last weekend we were in LA at the United States of Women conference. We got into the elevator stopped at 10th floor. I was freaking out, palpitating. I was like, oh my God, we're stuck here, can't go. And then she's like, relax. she's like, Pratima, do you read over here? It says use your key card. Yes. So yeah, I think that really helps. And Dahlia, she's super brilliant, and being principal engineer at VMware is super hard. It's very hard to be, and Ann Holler did that, and Dahlia. And I was talking to this guy called Andrew Lambeth, who is a fellow at VMware, and this is what he said. He said, when Dahlia's in the room, everybody listens, everybody respects what she says, and her technical credibility will speak to it. So,
Awesome.
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
thank you.
And that's the woman that I go and check my technical information. About you before. Bill?
Yes, so the next question I have is, how do you overcome the aggressive label and deal with emotions in the workplace? And
I haven't been labeled aggressive yet.
You're not trying hard enough.
I think you probably are labeled aggressive. I think I've heard the
Can we
story.
expand it to like more labels? Aggressive.
I think I've been labeled aggressive as a compliment, and I'm still trying to explain to people that have not learned the English language the difference. Because I learned it as a second language. I actually had to learn the definition of assertive versus aggressive, which is assertive is that you find what you want without trampling over the other. And that's what I think I am, but you can't push me over, and there's no lose-lose, no lose-win. It is a win-win. That's my philosophy. But some guys like, she's aggressive. She goes gets it. And I'm like, no, because aggression means that I trample over the other. Do you think I trampled over you?
Right.
No, you didn't. Okay, then that's called assertive. But you have to go around and teach it to what? It's like, well, how many? 20,000 guys? I mean, just a lot of teaching. And like actually my ex-boss, whom I left, did tell that to Pratima as a compliment about me, and I was a bit offended, and I said, okay, of all the reputations, let that be the reputation. But it is a fine line, and you have to go around, and now you guys go and fix that definition. Because if any guy would have been doing the same as I did, he would have been labeled as assertive or as something else. As a leader. As a leader. So, yeah.
I think another thing that helps you combat that too, if you just check yourself and you come with data. Data is a neutralizer in any decision making or any case you're trying to make in a meeting or situation or a strategy. And if you consciously think, you're just going to go with data, there's nothing to get emotional about.
That's true.
Right? Here's the facts. Let's just all talk through them. I think that can help.
Well, sorry if I may again switch the question really quick. Can we also broaden it to outside of tech too? Because I feel like in an outside of tech, in a situation where data is maybe a little bit harder to come by or outcomes are a little bit harder to prepare, that conversation becomes a lot harder, right? So it's kind of just expanding the question.
You were gonna.
Annabelle.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm being labeled aggressive, but I think I'm being more labeled as authoritative. Authoritarian. Yeah, like I think it was and I think at some point that was severely hurting my chance of getting promoted. That was like kind of the only thing that's based when I asked like, how come my promotion didn't go through? I thought it's coming, and I think it was my image about that, and I took some time off and to really think about what that really means by asking people that I trust, right? Like people, my mentors, my managers, my manager's manager, and just like, tell me why, and they give me, some of them they say, not sure, just heard from someone who heard from someone, and sometimes there are some people that came with really good like incidents and specific examples when that happened and might give people that impression, and I think for me it turns out it's just, I think a lot has to do with the way I talk. I tend to talk really fast when in the discussion, right? And I'm a little bit of a sometimes I have too many ideas going at the same time, and then I might switch ideas in the middle of conversation, a little bit of ADD, and then so I think that that give people that impression, and I consciously made adjustment to my style, like just slow down, give people a chance to finish, even though I might already understood exactly what they're gonna say. There
you go. I like that.
I got it, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold, I'm gonna listen. You know, like I think a lot of it just be like that. That give me like I think I'm really trying to understand how the label came about, helped me, and then just you know check with people. All the different people working around you to get some data, whether it's real, it's perception, or is it real? Maybe there's some lags, maybe there's some misunderstanding. But for me, it was a good learning for me to really slow down and give people the patience, time, and a space that needed to express themselves. Because sometimes I may go on a completely different tangent. So that helped me.
I have something to add. I think for women in particular, if it's almost like I think like Orna said, I feel like sometimes it's a compliment. If I wasn't getting to a point where people felt I'm aggressive, I probably didn't go far enough, right? So I actually I find like pushing and getting to a point where people you feel like it's too much is probably right, especially for women, right? Because like if everybody feels like you're always nice, then you're probably kind of always holding back too much. So just something to consider.
Dahlia does not need to be aggressive because she's always right. And I just wanted to tell you a story about Dahlia's reputation, and the reason I'm saying this is because we talk about reputation. So she's a friend of mine, we chatted, I was telling her about some product, and she said, it's full of security holes. And it was an early product of VMware at the time. I just happened to have a one-on-one with the GM of that division that day, and I said to him, the reputation isn't very good. And he said, well, really, what is it? I said, well, it's full of security holes. Again, I told you I go to talk to the smartest people, so I get to be the smartest person. And he said, really, how can I? said, well, I talked to Dahlia. And then I walk to my office back and get lunch, and I see him dash. Dahlia's office is very close to mine. He's like running to see what's going on. So I don't know what happened in that office, but what I wanted to say is about the reputation that Dahlia created. First of all, she's not afraid to talk to a GM and say, hey, your product is full of security holes, and also that everybody takes her very seriously, everything she says. That's pretty powerful. And I'm hoping one day, there are snippets where people ask my opinion in some areas, and I said, I bet that's how Dahlia feels.
I guess I have to say something. Sorry for being late. We literally flew in just now into SFO, flight delays and so forth. Yes, not because I'm always right, but I don't think I've ever been called aggressive at work. If at all, probably the other way around. People I get to be more assertive. I tend to be pretty democratic, probably a fairly common female trait. But either way, not aggressive but provocative, I have been called many times.
That seems like a
Which
good
is
thing.
great.
Yeah, but I think either way, aggressive, provocative, no matter what, any label we get, one thing I think is very clear. When you're giving a keynote, when you're a leader at work, when you're a manager, no matter what you do, you're yourself, but you're also inevitably a representative of the entire female population. So if you screw up, yes, Dahlia screwed up, but also the entire female population. Oh, that female screwed up. If I'm being provocative, these female provocative, that's, it's tough.
How did you I wanted to ask a related question. Sorry, my voice is half gone today. Since you're talking about labels and what being called, have any of you ever been called or said you talk too much, talk less, or that you raise your voice when you
Loud. I've been called loud.
Loud, and
Yes.
you raise your voice when you want to get across point, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I've heard that in hiring decisions, like when I have a hiring panel, someone will say, I don't want to hire her, she just talked too much. And that's where I stop, right? And I stop that because we're hiring somebody for their skills, not for talking too much or talking too little. Are they good, right? So yes, I think that I've seen that as a problem because they think women talk too much, and so that tends to happen. Yeah.
Orna never talks too much.
Yes, I have been.
Do you smile enough though?
Actually, I've heard that about Orna too, I think.
It might be true. I do talk a lot, but I attribute that as part of my success because I do have an opinion and I'm not afraid to share it. And hopefully I do it in a succinct fashion and not just boring everybody. But my question back would be, if you were to take that much real estate, what would people say about you? Right. I mean, I'm asking actually everybody here to say, like, okay, if you take a lot of the room or you take a lot of real estate in a meeting, would that other guy have the same impression? But it's a hard one to combat. And one thing I did, I actually got an executive coach. And first of all, in writing, I'm very succinct to a fault. And I actually have to add my thank yous and appreciation after I write the messages. So, and I learned that from Allison. I used to give her my email, I said, could you make this polite? And I'm not making this Am I right, Ellie? So one thing I've done with my executive coach is try to do practices of messages to be more to the point. But then it's sometimes more hurtful or more, so yeah, I have been known to do that.
I would be very cautious about making broad generalizations like women talk too much. I mean, because the truth is that I much more frequently hear that women are not heard in meetings. That's probably one of the most common feedback you get. And I am aware that actually many successful women are seen as talking too much because they have learned to be assertive in certain circumstances. But my experience is that it's often the men in meetings that talk too much, that it's very hard to get a word in edgewise. But once again, I mean, this is one of those areas where both men and the individual men and women have very different characteristics. I mean, I work really hard. I work really hard to get in when I want to make a point, but I have to work hard at it.
Yeah, I've been labeled with not talking enough, especially in the meetings where executives are present, right? Like, I think just people say she doesn't have, in the early days at LinkedIn, people were like, she doesn't have a voice. Never heard Annabel speak. I think we would. There was one time when my boss was going around collecting feedback to see if I should be promoted to director. So he went around and asked my business partner, like someone who runs sales, like, hey, what do you think about Annabel? Is she, as director, you should be strategic. Is she strategic enough? And my business partner was like, don't know. I never heard Annabel speak, right? And then I think I went through the executive coaching, and I have to, sometimes I just find hard to find because men talk so much in the meetings, like you cannot find the right point to interject, right? And I just feel bad interjecting, and I think just so I struggle with that, and then went through some coaching, and then later on, I think I find just to balance out when to say. I don't want to talk too much, but I wanted to kind of catch the right point, say the things that really matters, and then I think very quickly I built a reputation being very succinct, right? Just not saying much, but when she says something, she really mean it, and then you guys should all listen. So I think that I kind of play that to my advantage.
Yeah, and I would just add on, I think there's different environments where I'll talk a lot, and then back to you're in a room with all the VPs, your CEO, and you're in that room, all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, you were such a big talker, and then you shrink down, and you're you're not saying anything, and it's because of that environment.
Yeah.
And recently, now that I'm running the learning team at LinkedIn, all of engineering, I'm going to monetization meetings because we're a business where we're making money. And there's 2 other women that go to that meeting. The rest are all men, all around the table. And they happen to be on the same team. And they said, oh my gosh, Erica, it's going to be so great. We're going to have 3 women in that room. And she's all, but you know what? Nobody says anything. It's always the men. And so I was like, I'm new to this meeting. I'm going to prepare for the meeting, and I'm going to say something in the meeting. and so I put that own pressure on myself, and I decided to, and I talked about some revenue numbers, and I talked about where we're headed as a business, and I had something important to say. I hate also when people just to talk, to be heard, get a lot of that. So, and I remember after, and I was so nervous, my heart rate started going up. It was crazy. Like I got all, everything, like I must have looked like a tomato, right? So, but I remember after I finished, our Ryan, who's our SVP of product there, he stood up, he's like, Erica, I'm so glad you're in this meeting. Mm-hmm. And it was like the validation that he just like said something right after I said something. I literally got the chills. I'm like, oh, I succeeded. but I realized also that now in the meeting, like some of other women will say like, hey, you better say something. We'll be texting each other in the meeting. Wow. And they will say something, and guess what? I'll be like Emily said, like Erica said, and it's like strategic, and it works a lot. And then I also realize when there's women that are not talking and men that are not talking in meetings, I'll say like, what do you think? Now that I asked you to say something, guess what? You're gonna have to say something. You're just like you had to say something when she said your name. And so there's just different tactics that I think you can use that has been really, really helpful. Right. So.
Orna, I've been watching for many years now, and it's important to have something to say, but Orna also has this technique. She also refers to everybody else in the room, and refers back, refers forward, makes them part of the conversation. So even the shy people, and it doesn't have to be females, it's male and female, they're all involved. So, you know, that's a technique to watch and learn. I don't know if it came natural to you. Did you?
I never knew I was doing it.
She likes to talk to everybody.
So I have a question I'm really curious to ask. So, to achieve, 50, the kind of equity that we'd like to see at the corporate level, some of the seeds of that happens in the schools, and I'm curious to hear from some of you folks what needs to change in the way things get taught, the way math gets taught, or the way science gets taught, or computer science gets taught in elementary, middle school, high school level, that would help young women get a better vision of what their minds are capable of and where their careers could go.
So this is a big topic. Well, let me just make a few comments. There is a lot of work going on in the K through 12. Code.org has actually done a lot of work throughout the country.
Code.org, amazing.
To bring computing education to elementary, middle school, high school. There's some after-school programs, Girls Who Code, Black Girls Who Code. I'm always a little cautious, quite honestly, about focusing on the K through 12 because we're getting better and better at having more women in universities, but until companies realize that they need to retain and advance their women, I was just at Caltech, and I was surrounded by these young women. It's actually almost 50% women in computing now, and they're so excited, and they're about ready to graduate, and they're going to Google and Facebook, and I thought, oh my God, because it isn't 50% there. So it's easy to think about it as K through 12, but it's a little bit more complex than that.
Well, that question would it kind of assumes that the problem is the teaching method. But I've heard like research that shows that girls, when they start caring about what boys think of them, suddenly pull away from math and science, like in middle school. So I don't know if it's the teaching method or it's that girls don't want to be smarter than the boys because then the boys won't like them.
So I would like to say something. This is a very big topic for me, and Bill knows this because Bill and I started a 3-session computer class at Noah's school because I said, wow, our girl is there, let's just get the entire school, all the grades. So we did, hey, why it is great to be an engineer, a presentation that I gave, and to show up I had to actually get donuts and stuff like that for the kids. We got great attendance with the food, not so much without it. And then we did one class of code.org, just play around with coding, and then Bill taught Python, I believe, and it shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. And a couple of things I learned very quickly. 10th grade, it's too late. Because boys wanted to show up, girls were, Facebooking and doing many other things that were social. I said, I'm going to go to the literature classes, I'm going to go to the social studies classes, and I'm going to get the girls in, because like, hey, it's actually not that geeky guy who's coding with a Coke next to him. It's very social. And I don't just sit in front of a computer all day. I walk around, I get to talk to these smartest people, and I solve tough problems in the world. You know what? There's a library of the blind and deaf in Florida that is using vSphere. It's a product I worked on, and I was very proud of it. So we're trying to bring this message, and we learned it was too late. So we said, okay, we're going to go now to middle school. And we did go to 7th grade, and at 7th grade was one girl sitting after Allison's, very shy, very far, and Bill said to them, because in the first, we did the same 3 sessions, but he said, now is the time when you do the electives, err on the side of math and sciences and try those. And she switched her major that day. She actually signed, because of our talk, it was not too late, and she got in. My friend Mickey, who's here, her daughter is, I believe she's 16 now, and she started coding because she's a gamer. So I think what we have to do is bring it younger and younger, that's one thing, and make it that they're not afraid. So for example, Sharon, because she needed some textures for a game, decided she's just going to code it herself. Her dad helped her, of course, and now she's actually hacked into her school and got in trouble. She allowed some texting externally that the school was preventing, and she worked around it and created this texting group. And after being actually reprimanded and suspended, the principal said, we actually are very impressed. And we want to hire her into our tech team because we're competing. But what I'm saying is the younger the better, and make it like, and one of the researchers, the last thing is that boys used to get computers as a gift, and we got Barbies. And because they got computers as a gift, when they got to Stanford 105 computer class, which I had to take, I was brand new to it. But the boys, like, they knew already. They got the A's. It was so easy for them. And I was sitting 5 hours on the weekend not figuring out one mistake that my husband eventually fixed. And it took a long time for me to get to where they were just there, because those were their toys. So get those machines early in the hands of girls, make an environment that's social, maybe.
She's trying to say something.
Yeah, I hear a lot that you're supposed to go younger, and I understand that this is a good thing. But you got to understand that if you take a 7th grader and they have a really good experience in science and engineering and math, and then they have a 9th grade teacher that's really awful, they leave. And so it's actually...
That is what happened to me. The girls leave and the boys don't happen to me.
Well, it's, sometimes because they are more social, they get turned off, but if you look at the programs that work, that have a lot of data, it's where they stay involved starting young, but all the way through the schools. And so you have to be a little careful about just saying that it's about going into the schools. And so this is why it's a big topic.
So I just want to say one thing. There's something very hopeful. So VMware, there's an executive at VMware who was very frustrated that women were leaving at a faster rate. So he donated $15 million to Stanford, the Stanford Gender Studies, and right now they're doing research on why women drop out at a very young age. And what they found, and I don't know, I'm talking to them maybe next week to find out what exactly their research came about, what came out of it, but they basically came out saying that the way curriculum is taught to young girls makes them actually leave at a faster rate. Like they're not interested, and so it's like, how do you change that? how do you change that so more girls can stay and then can, so it's intervention at every step, right? We need to kind of change that curriculum, maybe, I don't know, with their research. If I get more data, I can blog about it, but it's changing that, and we could do that at a younger age. And Yasmin is a Stanford grad, sophomore.
Student. Yeah, so I'm currently a sophomore at Stanford, and I can actually vouch for that program. So what they're having us do is, with all the research that they found, it has been proven that a reason why a lot of girls tend to leave early is because the way our brains are wired is so much different to the way boys' brains are wired, and the way the curriculum is taught makes a lot of girls prefer English and literature and social sciences as opposed to math and sciences. And so with this program that VMware is doing, they're actually training us college students to teach high school students. So they've created a bunch of videos, they've created a bunch of tutorials that they're having us implement, and they're trying to see whether we can target the teaching experience at a very young age, and whether having a mentor all through high school would encourage them to come to college and pursue CS or pursue engineering and continue with it. So it is very promising, like Pratima said, and the program's been running for over a year now, and it's been really, really good. And a lot of, I volunteer sometimes as a sophomore at Stanford. I know a bunch of friends who are upperclassmen and underclassmen that also volunteer, and it seems like we're shifting in the right direction, so.
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
That's awesome.
Great.
I think we're going to wrap up, but I want to ask one more question for everybody. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice when you started your career in tech, what would it be?
I think back to her point, I'd get a mentor and get help along the way and have that conversation early on and consistently. I think it was a great comment that you made. So I definitely would do that.
It took me a little while to find computing science when I was an undergraduate, and so I was scrambling the whole time trying to catch up, and I would have started earlier.
I think I would have believed in myself more. Because fortunately, some other people believed in me, so that helped. But it would have been better if I believed in myself more too.
I think I would, very similar to Erica, which is also the one I mentioned early on, like the one piece of advice I share with all my mentees is there are people that are just really, they're very selfish, they wanted to help, and then it took me a while to learn that. So I'll get help early on, talking to people, and then expose your vulnerabilities. I was very, I'm not very good at it, and then not getting help, but get help early on.
For me, maybe similar, trust myself more and care less about what people think. Yeah.
So for me, I'm a drifter. I didn't quite set goals when I got into the workforce, and that's something I should have done. I should have set some goals and kind of work towards it, because I'm really good at setting a goal and getting there. But I just have to do that. So I never did.
Yeah, for me, similar. I would quiet that voice in the back of my head. You won't be able to, no, that's too difficult. Just slows you down and makes you so less effective all along. It's quieter now than it was when I started, but it's still there.
I don't know, do the math homework. I am talking to myself. Yeah, there's lots of advice, but that would be one of them. I found the industry very late. I was an English teacher for 10 years. So I would say I really love what I do now, but it took me a while to get here because I started somewhere else, so it was a longer journey. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you guys.